just when I thought I was finished. Just after I finished recording my second video for today, my last video for today, this gem pops up. And this is an article straight off the press, hot off the press, that Fanbyte did about Yoshi-P and an interview they just did over email with Yoshi-P. And of course, I have to cover it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read the article. I skimmed through it before. I'm about to read it for the first time with y'all word for word now, and add commentary where appropriate. And the title of this article is A Quick Chat with Naoki Yoshida on patch 6.2 and Final Fantasy XIV's future. And the author starts off by saying that patch 6.2 for Final Fantasy XIV was a boon for players. The Final Fantasy XIV team delivered on nearly every front in terms of new content. A wild raid tier in Abyssos, revelatory story quests with new characters, the much anticipated chill vibes of Island Sanctuary, and meaningful revamps to older stuff. It dropped in late August, and we've covered it from every angle. But with some time away from the patch and 6.25 right around the corner, we had a moment to reflect on where Final Fantasy XIV is going. And it seems like Yoshi-P does a rather good job at interacting with Western journalists and Western content creators, even better than some Western game studios. And so it's good that he's doing this, because literally just 4 or 5 days ago, I know he did an interview with GameSpot, and now he's doing one with Fanbyte. So it's cool to see. It's good to see. The author then goes on to say in the article that I had an opportunity to send a few questions over email to director and producer Naoki Yoshida. From where the game is now to where the game is going in the future, it seems like Final Fantasy XIV team has a post-Hydaelyn world figured out. Given that we're embarking on a new adventure this time, I was most careful about not losing momentum, Yoshida replied when I asked him about how the development team is handling expectations for Final Fantasy XIV's next era. And it seems like this is something he really wants to harp on, because the delay of Endwalker, back when Endwalker was coming out, was in large part due to the Final Fantasy XIV team wanting to add some voice lines for Emmett Selk. And they wanted Emmett Selk to talk about the futures that were going to come ahead past 6.0. And Yoshi-P said the reason why they wanted to go ahead and include that dialogue into the story, whereas it wasn't there initially, is to create an expectation for players that there's more to the story. There's more to come here, This is not the curtain call. There's more to come. And he just wanted to make sure he set those expectations in the player's head. And the article then goes on to say that Yoshi-P followed that up and said that Endwalker provided closure for everyone's exhilaration, which was previously why it was important to stoke the fire for the next thrill, a buildup of excitement, feeling the thrill, embarking on an adventure into the unknown. I believe these are what players are looking for, so I want to be mindful of those expectations. And yeah, of course, like good storytelling will always have a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter or at the end of every, big story arc. You always want to leave that cliffhanger there so people are anticipating what's next to come. And it seems like he's trying to deliberately make sure that he's doing that, because he's closing the biggest arc and like the primary arc that they had in Final Fantasy XIV for the past 10 years since the release of 2.0. And so then the article then goes on to say that the thrill Yoshida mentions is due in large part to the story Final Fantasy XIV tells. For those who are caught up on the latest story content in patch 6.2, we have newcomers like the quickly grown Satrap and Varshan, and the Void native Reaper named Zero, taking on lead roles as we venture through the uncharted realm. However, much of this current arc is rooted in Final Fantasy IV, using the classic entry as a point of reference. Golbez and the Four Fiends are the current focus of villainy, but nothing is ever that simple in Final Fantasy XIV. So this makes me wonder, should I play Final Fantasy IV before going ahead and doing the patch 6.3 content? Because it would give me, more reference and context, and I'd be able to enjoy the upcoming patches more? Or should I refrain from playing Final Fantasy IV because it might contain some spoilers? I don't know the answer. Maybe tell me in the comments. So anyway, the article then goes on to say that Yoshida hinted at something bigger, saying, I hope you'll stay tuned to see how the story will unfold from here. But with regards to continuing to use Final Fantasy IV as source material, he said, I had resolved to avoid flaunting references to Final Fantasy IV until we eventually took players to the moon. So now I'm letting it all out. Between the Barbarecia trial, the use of the Final Fantasy IV boss battle theme, and the references and motifs in between, Final Fantasy XIV is laying it on thick, which some of us are enjoying quite a lot. So there are like two types of Final Fantasy players primarily that I've noticed. There are the X-WoW types, such as myself, and there are people who are really big fans of the Final Fantasy franchise. Now, I didn't really play any Final Fantasy games before Final Fantasy 14. You know, I was like an MMO guy, so I played the best MMO that there was on the market. And so I didn't get to go ahead and experience having Final Fantasy 14 reference some of the older material from some of the older games and, get delighted from that nostalgia. And I heard that's something that did happen in A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Word. And so it makes me wonder, like, do I play Final Fantasy 4 or not? So then the article then goes on to say that Yoshi-P reiterated his previous statement about how Final Fantasy 14 is, in part, a Final Fantasy theme park. Yet there's a fine line between being referential and going overboard. This applies to any title in the series that we incorporate. But while we want people to feel the nostalgia, we also make sure that our story is still original, Yoshida said. He continued, the same approach was used this time around as well. Okay, so this tells me that I can absolutely go ahead and play Final Fantasy 4 and not be spoiled for the upcoming patches in 14. So I might as well go do that. I might actually end up playing Final Fantasy 4 just to see what's up. So then the article then goes on to say, much of what makes Final Fantasy 14 so enjoyable are the small things. Players hold the game in high regard for its storytelling and impressive set piece battles. But patch 6.2 was another example of how a variety of side activities round out the experience. Final Fantasy XIV regularly gives players something new to do in addition to the expected content, and Island Sanctuary was the most recent highlight. And that's, I think, the primary reason why Final Fantasy XIV is winning as an MMO. It is the broadest MMO. Even something as monotonous as leveling typically is in MMOs, Final Fantasy XIV gives you so many ways to go about it. You can go ahead and do Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High. You've got roulettes. You've got fates. You've got Eureka. You've got Baja. You see what I'm saying? You've got guild heists. List goes on and on. And that's just leveling. That's not even mentioning the golden saucer. That's not even mentioning housing. That's not mentioning the social experience. And I think that's the highlight, the primary reason why Final Fantasy XIV is the top dog MMO right now. And that's really the biggest strength that the game has. And so then the article says that the craft and gathering and base management proved to be an easygoing endeavor unless you're aggressively playing the handicraft market, and there's more of it on the way. Yeah, I've heard there's some recent talk about Island Sanctuary now that a lot of people have finished it. Some people think that it's not enough content. This is a sentiment that I've heard, that some people thought that there wasn't enough. And to that, I would respond that Yoshi-P said going into patch 6.2 that Island Sanctuary was meant to be very casual content. It was not made to be min-maxed or grinded out, in a very, efficient way. And it was just kind of something there that you can do to relax. And so, although I understand the sentiment that people think that it didn't have enough content, I think for what it was definitely a good first iteration. And it also had to be a first iteration. Like, it shouldn't have been this huge fleshed out thing because Yoshi-P didn't know if this was something the community would like to begin with. So, to kind of start small and, kind of dip his toe in and see, are the players going to like this? And then, decide from there whether to add more to it or not, I think was the right move. So anyway, the article then goes on to say that Yoshi-P said that we plan to open more areas in which to construct facilities, add more types of facilities, and of course, address feedback from our players. Okay, so it does seem like they are going to go ahead and they're going to continue to iterate on Island Sanctuary. Yoshida said regarding what's next for Island Sanctuary, he concluded we'll be maintaining the concept of making the Island Sanctuary a place where players can freely enjoy at their own pace. Whatever is in store, we can expect it in the upcoming 6.x patches, as mentioned in previous live letters. Criterion and variant dungeons are an all-new type of instance which debuts in patch 6.2.5 later this month. And that's what I'm so excited for. As someone who's, who likes World of Warcraft primarily for its Mythic Plus, the prospect of Criterion dungeons are so exciting to me. To be able to do like very difficult content that's 4 mana in Final Fantasy, I can't wait to see what that's like. And so then the article says, and I hope you've done your Hillebrand quest to get ready for the next relic weapons. I have not. I actually started doing the Hillebrand quests on stream several months ago, and I thought it was a little too slapstick. And that, it is not kind of my kind of comedy, but I might go ahead and try that again and see if anything's changed since then. In terms of shaking up the core of Final Fantasy XIV, Yoshida doesn't seem too concerned about making significant changes to the established formula. Rather, it seems the team is more focused on the game's quality of life and long-term sustainability for now. The plans I've announced so far, including accommodating solo players, solo playstyles, and offering new types of content, are the entirety of the challenges we're currently pushing forward with. Yoshida said in reply to a question about the most pressing matters they face, and if there are concerns about shaking up the current formula. The big ticket item as we approach the next expansion and patch 7.0 is the graphics overhaul, which was outlined in a live letter earlier this year. See, what I'm worried about when it comes to the graphics overhaul is it creating a higher barrier to entry to play Final Fantasy XIV. Is this going to create a situation where the game might not run as well on PlayStation 4? Is this going to create a situation where a lot of people now who are able to run Final Fantasy XIV on their laptops or their lower end desktops won't be able to run the game anymore? And that's really what I'm terrified about with this graphics update, but we'll see how it goes. Recently, Europe got new servers, Japan got restructured data centers, and Oceania servers went live. And while new North American servers are still being worked, it's been a key focus, especially considering the congestion troubles around Endwalker's launch. So then here is a picture that they showed in one of the live letters of the graphics overhaul. This is obviously how it is now. And this is how it's going to look like. It looks great. It really does. But I'm terrified that it's going to make the requirements too high. Because even now, Final Fantasy XIV is harder to run on hardware than a game like World of Warcraft, which is a lot. You can run on almost a potato. And so I'm really hoping for the best when it comes to that. Yoshi-P then goes on to say that naturally, the graphical update isn't the only challenge we're undertaking. We're also working on future-proofing with significant server expansions, as well as investing in infrastructure and other aspects, Yoshida mentioned. Outside of that, well, I suppose that depends on what sort of ideas we have for the patch 7.x series. I know I'm already racking my brain over it, he types out, probably giggling to himself. Final Fantasy XIV has a much higher profile now. Yeah, the game has essentially become mainstream. It is the crown jewel in Square Enix's portfolio. It is the only game that is currently continuously growing their revenue right now, whereas other games are shrinking their revenue. And so it has a much higher profile now, and with more eyes on the game than ever before, ushering the game into a new era also means taking care of the not-so-flashy aspects like servers and improving the user experience. So when it comes to servers and improving the user experience, I was really excited for the addition of cross-data center travel that was introduced in patch, I think it was 6.1 this summer. But it turns out that despite being able to travel data centers, you cannot message people unless they're on the same data center as you, maybe even the same world as you. And that was a huge bummer to me because I've made friends and I have friends on other servers and I cannot talk to them even if I see them online unless I go and I travel to their data center. And that's usually not enough reason for me to go ahead and leave my data center. And so if they could figure that out, that would be really, really cool. And so the article says, though I've noticed over the years of playing Final Fantasy XIV, new ideas explored in patch content are often a testbed for something we'll see in the future. However, that may manifest in the next expansions or set of patches. It'll be exciting to parse when the time comes. If you're itching for more hints about where Final Fantasy XIV is going from here, you should know that the development team is on the case of having wrapped up their writer's retreat not too long ago. Interesting. I didn't know they had writer retreats. I thought that Ishikawa was the primary writer and she kind of dictated what everyone else would do, but that they get together and have retreats like this, that's pretty cool. In the meantime, patch 6.2.5 is set to release later this month, which we'll have covered here. Yeah, I think that's just coming out in a couple of weeks here, and that's the one with the criterions and variants. It'll be exciting to see how those are. I'm really excited about the criterion dungeons. And I hope you enjoyed that article. That's all I had for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.